Citizens of that town, by mayoral decree, the following episode may cover topics the likes of which may trigger your timbers. Consider yourselves duly notified.
Good evening, guys, gals, non-binary pals. It's that time of year where we have to make some money because things have been really tight this year. That means y'all get to hear some non-pre-screened syndicated programming. Let's see. According to the paperwork that came with this tape, this is a one-shot story called The Mean Dream Machine. Sounds awful. But I'll pay to keep the lights on. Here we go.
Robert Pembroke Smythe was not an interesting man. The most interesting thing about him was his name, and he hated it. He also hated that he was having trouble sleeping. He tossed, he turned, he screamed at the moon like a beast until his neighbors in all directions of his apartment would bang upon whatever adjoining surface they unfortunately shared with the man to make the howling stop. Someone across the courtyard had recently shot Robert in the throat with a BB gun because of the nocturnal screaming. His fault, really, for leaving the window open whilst he did it. Robert had agreed to not press charges for assault if none of his neighbors pressed charges for disturbing the peace upon him, and if he attended a sleep study. And that is where Robert currently found himself. The waiting room of the office was in dire need of a remodel. The chairs were clearly from the 1960s, and the dilapidated phone Robert was sitting upon was proof enough of that. His back was aching from the lack of support. He'd been sitting there for 15 whole minutes, and he knew as clearly as he knew he was going to yell at the moon again that night that his L1 and L3 vertebrae were turning his L2 vertebrae into something akin to dust. He'd seen a documentary on the spine recently. It was a decent watch. Right as he was about to complain to the receptionist for the 7th time in the last 5 minutes, the door to the back swung open, and a woman in scrubs beckoned for him.
Mr. Smythe, we're ready for you. Please, follow me.
Her name tag said Sandra. Sandra's voice was pleasant. However, Robert's mood was not. She motioned for him to enter exam room 7. He did, but not without having some attitude about it. Sandra instructed Robert to lie upon the bed and get comfortable. The doctor would see him shortly. As soon as the door closed, Robert began snooping about, opening drawers, going through cabinets, pulling the covers off the bed, just being the type of person he was, demolishing a business and then leaving a 1-star review about what he himself had done to it. Once his tantrum was out of his system, he felt very sleepy. He lied down upon the bed and fell asleep with alarming speed. Robert awoke with a start. He checked his watch and found he wasn't wearing one.
Did they steal my watch? What the hell?
He wasn't lying in a bed anymore. He was sitting at a desk. The lights overhead gave everything a bluish-green tone. Robert realized he wasn't in exam room 7 anymore. He was in an exact replica of his high school chemistry room. The room reeked of cannabis, stale air, and chlorine. He got up from the desk.
Where the hell am I?
Robert yelled to himself. All the desks were empty. Even old Mr. Montanou's desk, nameplate and all, but missing the 5th of gin he kept in the lower drawer. Confused, but somehow feeling bored, Robert exited the room. The hallways out here were wide, very wide. Robert wasn't sure where he was. The halls were too big to be from his old school and were constructed all wrong. But they weren't the halls from the sleep clinic either.
Hey, is this some kind of prank? Because I ain't laughing. Someone better tell me what's going on here before I get real mad.
He yelled now, his voice echoing in the distance. Robert opened up the first door marked closet. But a classroom was somehow crammed into the space. All the desks were intersecting with each other, defying gravity in their physicality, crushing and rubbing into each other.
How is this happening?
Robert said as he reached out his hand to the stack of dust. Before his skin could even make contact, the desk began clattering and vibrating violently.
No.
He yelled as he slammed the door closed. The noises ceased at once. Robert started for the doorknob, but then stopped himself.
No, I need to find an exit. This is stupid.
So Robert began to stomp down the hall, opening and slamming the doors. Stairwells were filled with desks and made it impossible to use the stairs. Maintenance access doors had stacks of desks that were woven into the pipes. Storage rooms were full of assorted boxes, all aged cardboard and labeled in French. Robert assumed it was French. He wasn't really sure. He simply knew he couldn't read it. And since he didn't like the French, any language he couldn't read, he simply assumed it was French. However, each box, no matter the size, contained one student desk and one chair. Robert was getting tired of this, and was starting to feel the need to use the lavatory. He considered finding the corner somewhere, but security cameras these days were getting smaller and smaller and harder to spot, so he reconsidered. For now. Robert figured that whoever designed this place must be an idiot, and stopped trying to even figure out the floor plan. He meandered instead of picking any certain direction, feeling this would bring him greater luck. After turning a corner, he gasped in shock.
A teacher!
He wasn't really sure why he called the figure in hooded, ominous black robes a teacher. His teachers in school didn't wear hooded robes. Usually, it was those scratchy tweed suit coats with the elbow pads and the cat hair. For some reason, he was compelled to ask this teacher a question, and, being the man he was as blunt as he could make it.
Hey, do you know where the pissatorium is?
The hooded figure said nothing, except for perhaps a slight wheezing breath, if that counted as a statement.
Hey, I'm talking to you. How do I find the bathroom? Many have tried, but few have succeeded,
said the raspy voice ominously from deep within the shadows of the hood.
Cool, gotcha. I'm just gonna keep looking then. Thanks.
So Robert started to jog. Not in a I'm scared of you kind of way, simply a nonchalant kind of jog. The teacher called out to him.
You will never find the prize you seek.
At that comment, Robert changed his jog to a full-bore sprint. He wasn't in the shape he always simply assumed he was, and was winded quite quickly. He lost his footing and crashed into a door, turning it into splinters. That was a shoddily made door. Robert jumped to his feet and dusted himself off. He was in a room that looked like Mr. Montanou's again. But this time, the room was filled with dull-eyed people staring at the faux wood grain of their desk.
Pretty cool trick, huh, gang?
Said Robert, trying to play off his lack of physique. None of the people in the room responded. There was at least 20 of them. He walked close to one of them, waved his hand inches from their face. No reaction.
You doing okay, buddy?
The closer he got to the seated person, he got a sickening feeling in his gut. He touched their arm and recoiled. That's the usual response people have once they touch something that they expect to be warm but is instead cold and clammy. The seated person felt like they were sweating off a night of hard drinking, whilst also having a core body temperature approaching that of someone who was recently deceased. The person did not respond to any of the stimuli Robert tossed at them. It was at about this moment he decided to back out of the room, slowly. But the hooded teacher stood in the remnants of the doorway.
Yours is a fool's journey.
Robert's mind was furiously formulating an all-destructive comeback when he remembered Montanou had a personal bathroom in the back of the room. Robert scrambled to get to it, suddenly the call of nature overpowering him. Through a back office with a crunchy carpet, there it was. Valhalla. A simple door with a simple sign that read,
Bathroom.
Robert flung open the door, and blocking his path was the teacher. He jerked his head back to where he'd last seen it. and there was nothing. He peeked over the shoulder of the teacher and saw the bathroom wasn't a bathroom. It was another classroom. He screamed in frustration and slammed the door several times right in the teacher's hooded face.
You good now? Get that all out of your system.
Robert was no longer thinking in words. His face went red, his collar soaked in rage sweat. He tasted blood.
I told you. You will never find the prize you seek. Are you moving the bathrooms around?
Robert asked through clenched teeth. The teacher wheezed out a sickening laugh.
What? No, that's stupid. Oh, I get it. I get it now. All the bathrooms have been removed, right?
The teacher began to cackle, holding its stomach and doubled over. It heaved its shoulders and slapped at its knee.
Yes! Yes! All the bathrooms have been removed. Save, of course, for the one in the teacher's lounge. Yeah!
Robert said, cutting off the teacher. Although he couldn't see its face, he knew it was angry. It started walking towards him. Robert unzipped his pants. The teacher stopped in its tracks.
What in the world are you doing?
It put its arms out and took, for some reason, a defensive pose, like in karate.
This is what I'm doing.
Robert said, as he began to relieve himself upon the teacher's shoes. The teacher burst into flames, screaming. The teacher was soon nothing more than wet ashes, and Robert admired his handiwork. But his crotch suddenly felt warm and wet. He checked. He had, in fact, for some reason, simply peed on himself. Behind him, the door slammed, and he woke up back in the sleep study room. The white sheets of the bed, white no longer. A man in a long white coat stared at him. His face frowned, his head shaking from side to side slowly, as if deeply disappointed. He opened the door and yelled back into the hallway.
Sandra! Call housekeeping. We got us another bedwetter.
I am never playing this tape again. Let's all just pretend that last however long that tape was never happened, okay? Okay, coming up next, another one of those celebrity PSAs that I'm contractually obligated to play. But there's nothing saying I can't play public domain sound effects underneath it, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. Do your part and do the same. We'll be right back. That Town Mini is a production of That Town Entertainment. Today's episode was written by Joshua Singer and Jesse Hall. It was directed by Jesse Hall. Today's episode featured the vocal talents of Joshua Singer as narrator and doctor, Ashley Hall as Sandra, and Jesse Hall as Robert, the teacher, and Jesse. Music was created by Zach Fregoso. That's right, he created music, and we should all bow before him. Social Media Corner. We have social media. We do indeed. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Tumblr under That Town Entertainment. Our Twitter handles are at Tales of That Town and at This Is That Town. And, you know a spoiler? Well, it's not a spoiler. It's an outtake. I spoiled the outtakes. I'm so out of practice.
Madam, you're being recorded.
I'm still sore, so let's go ahead and knock this out.
So,
Oh, did you hear that crack? Did it pick up that crack?
I don't know.
I hope it did.
It fucking might have.
There you go. You got an authentic. Before y'all get gross, it was from doing Tai Chi and holding them poses so long. I did good, but I'm paying for it. Mr. Smithy, we're ready for you. Please follow me. No, we're not using that one. I was trying to be a dick. And you're like, oh no, I love it.
It's perfect! Perfect, I tell you!
You should just sub out the way I did it the first one for his name, and then the rest of it's pleasant.
It's like those goddamn robocalls.
Mr. Smythe, we're ready for you. Please follow me.